Hello, my dear friends. There is a love that defines you, that becomes the very rhythm of your heartbeat. For me, that love was my daughter, Rebecca. From the moment I held her in my arms 45 years ago, my world narrowed and expanded all at once. It narrowed to the beautiful focus of her needs, her smiles, her future, and it expanded with a love so fierce, so all-consuming that I would have gladly laid down my life for her. I carried the memory of her childhood like a sacred locket close to my heart, especially her birthdays. Do you remember the pure, unbridled joy of a child on their birthday? That was my Rebecca. Her eyes, wide and shining, would fix on the cake with its dancing candle flames, and her whole face would light up with a wonder that could outshine the sun. That light? That was my religion. So on the morning of her 45th birthday, I felt that familiar flutter of excitement. I had ordered her favorite cake, a magnificent chocolate confection from that fancy bakery downtown, studded with fresh, glistening strawberries, the one she'd loved since she was 6. It cost $200, and as I handed over my card, I didn't flinch. For my only child, my Rebecca, no price was too high. It wasn't just a cake. It was a vessel for all my love, for all those memories. I drove to her beautiful 2-story house in the quiet suburbs, a house that stood on a foundation of my sacrifice. You see, the $50,000 down payment had come from my life's savings, money I'd saved penny by penny working double shifts as a nurse for 40 years, changing bedpans, holding the hands of the dying, missing sleep, missing life, all for her. And seeing that house, knowing she was safe and happy within its walls, made every tired bone in my body feel it was worth it. I parked my old, modest car behind David's shiny new SUV, a little bubble of joy rising in my chest. I carefully arranged the cake box in my hands, even slipping the candles in place, just like I used to. I walked up the perfectly manicured path, my heart singing a silent, happy song. I knocked on the grand oak door, my smile already stretching my face. I was ready for the door to swing open, ready to see her face light up. The lock clicked. The door opened, and the world shifted. It was Rebecca, but it wasn't my Rebecca. The woman who stood there was a stranger wearing my daughter's face. Her expression wasn't one of surprise or joy. It was one of sheer, unadulterated annoyance, as if I were a delivery person who had come at an inconvenient time. "Oh," she muttered, the word dripping with disdain. She didn't even look me in the eye. "It's you." Those 2 words were like 2 small, sharp needles puncturing the happy bubble I'd been carrying. I felt my smile waver, but I clung to it, a desperate act. "Happy birthday, my love," I said, my voice a little too bright, pushing the cake forward like a shield. "Look, your favorite, chocolate with strawberries, just like when you were a little girl." Rebecca didn't look at the cake. She let out a deep, weary sigh, a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of all my years of love and label it a burden. She stepped back without a word, a silent, grudging permission to enter my own investment. "Mom," she began, her voice as dry and cold as stone the moment we sat down in her lavish living room. "We need to talk." My heart, already bruised, began to beat a frantic, nervous rhythm. "Of course, darling, anything," she said. "I've been thinking a lot about my birthday, about presents, about what would truly make me happy." I leaned forward, a puppet on the strings of her attention. "Tell me, a trip? Some jewelry? That new car you mentioned last month? Whatever it is, I'll get it for you." My voice was pleading, desperate to please, to see a flicker of the old warmth. Then she turned her head, slowly, and she looked me straight in the eye. What I saw there, it didn't just freeze me. It reached into my chest and squeezed my heart until I thought it would stop. It was pure, undiluted contempt. A small, cold smile played on her lips. she said, her voice low and deliberate, savoring each word as if it were a delicious morsel, as a birthday present, is for you to just die. The air vanished from the room. The sound of the refrigerator humming in the kitchen seemed deafening. I literally felt the ground tilt beneath my feet. My own daughter. The baby I had rocked to sleep. The child I had nursed through fevers. The young woman I had cheered for had just wished me dead. What? The word was a broken whisper, torn from a place of unimaginable pain. What did you just say? Tears, hot and shameful, welled up in my eyes, blurring her cold, impassive face. "You heard me," she continued, her voice now sharp and clinical, each word a knife twisting in the wound. "I'm tired of you, Mom. Tired of your constant calls, your unexpected visits, of you always being here, bothering me. My life would be so much easier, so much happier, if you would just disappear." My hands began to shake uncontrollably. The beautiful cake in my lap felt like a lead weight, a grotesque joke. 72 years of living, 45 years of being her mother, of scraped knees and college applications, of whispered secrets and proud moments. It all crumbled to dust in that single, horrifying moment. "Rebecca," I managed, my voice cracking with sobs. "I'm your mother. I've given you everything. I've sacrificed everything for you." "Exactly," she snapped, standing up now, looming over me. Her shadow fell across me and I felt small, insignificant. "And that's why you're suffocating me. I can't breathe with your constant presence. I need freedom. I need you to let me live my life without your drama and your endless emotional needs." The $200 cake was forgotten, the candles now soft and bent in the warmth of the room. The dream of the day, of hugs, of laughter, of blowing out candles together, vanished like smoke. "But honey," I tried one last time, my voice a pathetic plea, "I just want to be close to you, to be a part of your life. You're all I have. And that's exactly the problem," she fired back, her arms crossed in a final impenetrable barrier. "The fact that I'm all you have, it's pathetic. Go get a life of your own and leave me alone." Something inside me broke, truly, irrevocably broke. I got up from the sofa, my legs trembling so violently I could barely stand. The journey to her front door felt like a mile-long walk of shame. "I can't believe you're saying this to me," I murmured, more to myself than to her. After everything." "Everything you've done?" She let out a short, sarcastic laugh. "Mom, everything you've done has been for your own benefit, to feel needed, to have control over my life. But I'm not a little girl anymore." My hand found the cold brass of the doorknob. I turned it, and as I stepped over the threshold, I glanced back one last time. I was searching, desperately, for a glimmer of regret, a flicker of the sweet, loving little girl I had raised. But all I saw in her eyes was impatience, a cold, hard impatience for me to be gone so she could finally celebrate her birthday without the nuisance I represented. "Happy birthday, Rebecca," I whispered into the void between us, and I walked out of that house, closing the door softly behind me. I didn't know it then, but I was closing the door on my entire old life, because my daughter's cruel wish, it didn't kill me. Instead, it awakened something that had been sleeping inside me for decades, something she was going to wish had stayed asleep. I drove home from Rebecca's house in a trance. The world outside my car window was a blur of meaningless color and motion. How does the world just keep going when your own has just ended? I don't even remember parking the car or walking up to my apartment. The next thing I knew, I was standing in my small, silent kitchen,
The grand $200 cake still cradled in my arms like a dead thing. The once perfect chocolate frosting was now smudged, the strawberries peeking through like wounds. The candles were bent and wilted, their bright colors a mockery. Without a second thought, I walked to the trash can and let it drop. The thud it made was sickeningly final. That cake, that symbol of all my love and hope, was now just garbage. The melted wax was a perfect, ugly reflection of the tears that wouldn't stop falling. I felt liquid, like I was dissolving from the inside out. I stumbled into my living room and collapsed onto my old, worn sofa. And as my body sank into the familiar cushions, the memories this piece of furniture held nearly suffocated me. This was the very spot where I'd nursed a feverish Rebecca all night, her small, hot forehead pressed against my chest. This was where I'd read her Goodnight Moon 1,000 times, her little voice eventually reciting it with me. This was where she'd told me, breathless with excitement, about her first crush. This was where I'd sat, phone to my ear, crying tears of pure joy the first time she called me Mom from her college dorm. Every I love you, Mom seemed to echo in the silence now, each one twisting into a lie. How? I whispered into the empty room, my voice raw. How could my own child, the baby I carried for 9 months, wish for my death with such coldness? The question hung in the air, poisoning it. I had to understand. I had to find the flaw, the crack in our story that led to this chasm. And that's when I was drawn to my desk. Not to photo albums filled with smiling faces, but to the cardboard boxes tucked away in the bottom drawer. They were heavy, not with weight, but with truth. Inside were not memories of laughter, but the cold, hard evidence of a life spent, receipts, bank statements, canceled checks, the hidden ledger of my motherhood.
With trembling hands, I opened the first box. The scent of old paper and ink rose like a ghost, and I began to remember, not with sentiment, but with a brutal, calculating clarity. I remembered her at 3 years old, burning up with pneumonia. The doctor said she needed a specific, powerful antibiotic. $1,200. My insurance refused to cover it. I didn't hesitate for a second. I went home, opened my jewelry box, and took out my late mother's pearl necklace and her simple gold wedding band, the only things I had left of her. I sold them that very afternoon. The money paid for the medicine. I held my sobbing child that night, her breath easing, and I whispered, "Anything for you, my love, anything." I remembered her at 16, a whirlwind of excitement for the prom. She had her heart set on a specific, beautiful pink dress. It cost $800. On my nurse's salary, it was a fortune. So I picked up every extra weekend shift I could for 4 months. I was exhausted, but I didn't care. The day I brought that dress home, her eyes sparkled with tears of joy. She threw her arms around me. "Thank you, Mom. You're the best in the world." That hug, I would have worked 4 more months for it. Then came college. She was unsure, changing her major 3 times, from business to art history to communications. Each change meant lost credits, more money. The total bill came to $42,000. To pay for it, I sat in a bank and signed the papers for a second mortgage on my own small house, the one my husband and I had bought together. "Don't worry, honey," I'd tell her every time she called, stressed and crying. "Your education is the most important thing. We'll figure it out." Her wedding. She wanted the perfect day, the most elegant ballroom in the city, the most beautiful flowers, a live band. I organized it all and I paid for it all.
$35,000. I signed check after check, watching my savings dwindle, but her smile was my currency. I want my princess to have everything, I told the florist, the caterer, the photographer. And then the house. That house, the one I had just been exiled from. When she and David decided to buy it, they didn't have the down payment. "Don't worry about it," I'd said, as if it were nothing. "I'll take care of it." It was $150,000, the bulk of my retirement savings. The money I'd been squirreling away for 40 years for the day I could finally stop working. I handed it over and she hugged me. "Thank you, Mom. You're our savior." But it didn't end there. The ledger kept growing.
When the twins arrived 5 years ago, I became the free, on-call babysitter. Every date night, every urgent work dinner, every time they needed a break. I canceled my own plans. I said no to friends because being needed by her felt like love. When David lost his job last year, the panic in their voices was palpable. "We'll lose the house!" So for 8 months, I paid their mortgage, $16,000, money I took from my meager pension. To make it stretch, I lived on rice and beans. I didn't buy new clothes. I cut every corner imaginable. And just last year, the twins needed braces, another $4,000. I saw the stress on their faces and I swooped in. "Don't worry," I'd said, patting Rebecca's hand. "That's what grandparents are for." I laid all the papers out on my desk. My hands, now stained with ink and tears, started adding. The cost of raising her, roughly $200,000. College, $42,000. The wedding, $35,000. The house, $150,000. The mortgage bailout, $16,000. The braces, $4,000. Countless birthday and Christmas gifts over 45 years, at least another $10,000. The total was devastating. A number so large, it felt fictional. Over $460,000. I stared at the number. $460,000. Almost $500,000. I thought of my friends who had invested wisely, who were now traveling the world, living in beautiful retirement communities, free from financial worry. If I had put that money into a simple savings account with compound interest, I would have over $600,000 today. I could be secure. I could be comfortable. But no, I had chosen to invest in love. I had believed with every fiber of my being that the money spent on my daughter's happiness was the best investment I could ever make, that every sacrifice was a brick in the foundation of a loving relationship that would sustain me in my old age. How foolish, how pathetically, tragically foolish I had been. The sadness was still there, a vast, dark ocean inside me. But then, something new began to rise from its depths. It wasn't just hurt anymore. It was a cold, sharp, and terrifyingly clear feeling. I picked up my phone. My fingers were still shaking, but now it was from a different emotion. I had to hear it. I had to be absolutely sure this nightmare was real. I dialed her number. It rang 4 times before she answered. "What do you want now, Mom?" Her voice was a sigh of pure irritation. No concern, no, "Are you okay?" "Rebecca," I said, my voice trembling but deliberate, "I need to know. Did you really mean what you said to me today? Do you truly wish I were dead?" There was no pause, no hesitation. "Of course I meant it," she replied, her tone flat.
as if she were stating the most obvious fact in the world. "Mom, it's time for you to understand. I need space. Your obsession with me isn't healthy." She called a mother's love an obsession. "I hope," she said, her voice dropping to a final dismissive note, "that after today you finally get the message." The line went dead. I sat there in the silence, the phone still pressed to my ear. The last vestige of hope I'd been clinging to evaporated. There was no misunderstanding, no temporary anger. This was the truth she had been hiding for years. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and I replayed every "I love you," every hug, every happy memory. Had it all been a performance? Had I raised a daughter so profoundly selfish that she could only see my love as a chain? And then, around 3 a.m., in the deepest, quietest hour of the night, the transformation completed. The all-consuming sadness didn't vanish, but it was encased in something harder, something stronger. The tears stopped. The shaking stopped. The heartbreak had given way to a cold, quiet, and absolutely resolute rage. My daughter wanted me to die. Well, maybe it was time to give her exactly what she asked for.
That night, the longest night of my life, finally ended. But when the dawn came, something was different. I didn't wake up with that heavy, suffocating weight of grief. Instead, I opened my eyes and felt a strange, cold clarity. The tears had dried up, and in their place was a steel resolve. The heartbroken mother was gone. In her place was a woman with a mission. My daughter wanted me to disappear? Fine, but I would do it on my terms. I would vanish so completely, so spectacularly, that she would finally understand the colossal void she had so carelessly wished for. I got out of bed and didn't reach for my usual worn-out housecoat. I went to my closet and found my best suit, a tailored navy blue pantsuit I hadn't worn in years. As I put it on, it felt like armor. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a victim. I saw a strategist. My first stop was the bank, not as a timid widow, but as a woman reclaiming what was hers. The familiar manager, Mr. Martinez, greeted me with his usual warm smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Johnson. How can I help you today?" "Good morning, Mr. Martinez," I said, my voice calm and firm. "I need to close joint account number 45872-891. His smile faltered. "Are you sure? That account has a considerable balance of $20,000. "Completely sure," I replied, meeting his gaze without flinching. "I want every last penny transferred to my personal savings account immediately." As I signed the paperwork, my hand was steady. Watching that $20,000, money I had deposited for their emergencies, return to my sole control, felt like drawing a line in the sand. This was the first $20,000 of my freedom. Next, I drove to the mortgage loan office. This was the big one. The memory of signing those cosigner papers flashed in my mind. Rebecca's tearful gratitude, David's firm handshake and promise to never miss a payment. How easily those promises had broken.
The loan officer, Miss Williams, was all professional courtesy. "Mrs. Johnson, what brings you in today?" "I need to review the mortgage contract where I appear as a co-signer," I explained, my tone all business. "I need to understand my rights and obligations explicitly."
While she fetched the thick folder, I remembered the casual piece of information Rebecca had let slip just last week, thinking she was just venting. David had lost his job again. She had no idea she was handing me the key to my own revenge. As a cosigner, Miss Williams explained, you are responsible if the primary holders default, but you also have the right to reclaim the property if you believe they lack financial stability. And what would constitute evidence of that instability? I asked, feigning mild curiosity. Significant, recent payment delays, or, for instance, if the cosigner had to cover payments for an extended period, as you did last year for 8 months. That demonstrates a pattern of financial reliance. A slow, cold smile spread across my face, hidden from her view. It was perfect. I thank you. That's very clear, I said, taking a copy of every document. I'll be in touch. My final stop of the morning was the most important, the office of my lawyer, Annell Adams, a man who had known my husband and had watched Rebecca grow up. Julietta, he greeted, rising from his chair. This is a surprise. Is everything all right? I sat down, my posture straight. No, Annell, everything is not all right. And then I told him everything, not with hysterical sobs, but with a chilling, factual calm. I recounted the birthday wish, the contempt in her eyes, the decades of sacrifice that led to that moment.
Anil listened, his expression growing graver by the second. "My God, Julieta," he murmured when I finished. "I never imagined, after all you've done for her." "Neither did I said. "But I've made my decision. I want to change my will. Everything, the life insurance, my savings, this apartment, it all goes to the Orphans Foundation. Set up a trust for the grandchildren, but Rebecca cannot touch a single cent until they turn 25. "And the house?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "Prepare the paperwork. I'm exercising my rights as co-signer. Her husband is unemployed again. They are a financial risk." Anna leaned back, a look of grim admiration on his face. "You're sure you want to go this far?" I said, my voice low and steady. "She didn't just cross a line, Anal. She erased it. She told me her life would be easier if I was gone. Well, I'm going to make sure she understands exactly what gone means." Leaving his office, I felt a surge of power I hadn't felt in decades. But the most liberating part of my plan was still to come. I went home, poured a glass of wine, a small defiant act of self-indulgence, and I called a number I had saved but never dared to use. A travel agency for retirees seeking adventure abroad. "Yes, hello," I said, my voice brimming with a new confidence. "This is Julieta Johnson. I saw your promotion about living in Switzerland. Please send me all the information you have." When the agent started explaining the packages, I didn't hesitate. "Everything. Send me everything. I'm very, very interested." The call started almost immediately. My phone lit up with Rebecca's name. The audacity was breathtaking. The woman who had wished me dead was now demanding my services. "Mom, I need you to watch the twins on Friday. David and I have a work dinner." I took a deep, calm breath. "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" The shock in her voice was almost comical. She was so unused to the word no. "I have other plans," I said, a faint smile on my lips. "What plans could you possibly have?" she scoffed, that familiar condescension dripping from every word. "Plans?"
I replied, my voice cool and even, that are none of your business. Find another sitter. But, Mom, since you told me your greatest gift would be for me to die, I interrupted, the steel returning to my voice. I'm starting now. If you want me to disappear, I am. I heard her exasperated sigh. You're going to punish me like a child? I thought after a few days this drama would be over. It's not drama, Rebecca. It's respect for your wish. You wanted me gone, so I'm going. The final piece of my plan required an accomplice, my dear neighbor Elvira, who had witnessed my years of servitude. I invited her over and laid out my entire scheme. Her eyes widened not in judgment, but in gleeful solidarity. You brilliant, brilliant woman. She has no idea what's coming.
My role for her was crucial. She would be the one to discover my disappearance. She would go to my apartment, find it empty, and in a panic, take the letter I was about to write, a 23-page masterpiece detailing every sacrifice and every financial support I was revoking directly to Rebecca's door. The day of my departure arrived. I packed 2 suitcases with only my most precious belongings. As I zipped them up, I felt no nostalgia for the apartment I was leaving behind. It felt less like a home and more like a cage I was finally breaking free from. Elvira arrived at 5 a.m. with coffee and a conspirator's grin. "Ready for your great escape?" she asked, winking. "More than ready," I said, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with anticipation. The cab arrived. As the driver loaded my bags, I took one last look. 15 years in this place, and all I felt was nothing. It was just a shell. "To the airport," I told the driver. As we pulled away, I didn't look back. I was leaving behind the ghost of the woman I had been, the perpetual mother, the human ATM, the eager-to-please shadow in her daughter's life. At the airport, I bought a coffee and sat calmly at my gate. My phone buzzed incessantly. Rebecca, then David, then Rebecca again. I silenced it. Let them wonder. Let them panic. When my flight to Zurich was called, I walked down the jet bridge with my head held high. With every step, I shed another layer of my old life. The plane soared into the sky, and I looked down at the city shrinking beneath the clouds. My daughter had asked for a ghost for her birthday. She was about to get one, and this ghost was about to become more alive than she had ever been.
Zurich wasn't just a new city, it was a new universe. The air itself felt different, crisp, clean, and filled with possibility. For the first time in 45 years, my time was my own. My calendar, once a bleak landscape of waiting for Rebecca's calls, was now filled with my choices. I enrolled in German classes, my tongue stumbling over new words that had nothing to do with guilt or obligation. I joined a hiking group for seniors and found myself laughing breathlessly on mountain trails with women named Ingrid and Brigitte, who knew nothing of my past and liked me simply for my company. The constant low-grade anxiety that had been my soundtrack for decades, the worry about Rebecca's finances, the twins' schedules, their latest crisis, was gone. In its place was a profound, resonant peace. I slept through the night. I read books for hours. I sat by the lake and simply breathed. But back in my old life, the storm I had unleashed was beginning to rage. My phone, which I checked only occasionally, became a window into their escalating panic. The messages evolved in a telling pattern. First came the manipulative concern. "Mom, please answer. We're so worried about you." Then the financial reality dawned. The bank called about the joint account. How are we supposed to handle an emergency? Next, the threats. "If you don't answer, we're calling the police." And finally, the raw desperation. The mortgage lawyer called. "He says you can take the house. You're going to ruin us." It was a symphony of consequences, and I was no longer their conductor.
Then came the ultimate betrayal. A call from an American social worker. "Mrs. Johnson, your daughter, Rebecca, has filed a report. She's concerned you may be suffering from dementia and are living in precarious conditions abroad." My blood ran cold. She wasn't just trying to get me back. She was trying to have me declared incompetent, to strip me of my legal rights and control my life completely. The cruelty of it took my breath away. But I was ready. I agreed immediately to a full medical and psychological evaluation at the U.S. consulate. The doctor, a kind, older man, spent hours with me. At the end, he gave me his conclusion. "Mrs. Johnson," his voice firm with conviction, "not only are you in perfect mental health, but the decisions you have made demonstrate admirable lucidity and courage. Your daughter's allegations are completely unfounded." The official report was sent. Rebecca's scheme had not only failed, but it had backfired, leaving a permanent record of her false claims. The final domino fell when Anil, my lawyer, called with the news. "Julieta, the bank has foreclosed. They lost the house." I felt a complex pang, not of joy, but of somber validation. They had moved into a small apartment. David had finally found a factory job. Rebecca had to go back to work. They were finally living a life built on their own means, not on my sacrifice. But my story wasn't just about their reckoning. It was about my rebirth. Freed from the financial drain, my savings began to grow for the first time. Anil called again. "The house sold. As the cosigner, you're entitled to your $150,000 investment back, plus interest. And your apartment sold too." The total that landed in my Swiss account was nearly $300,000. At 72 years old, I was financially secure for the first time in my life. This freedom gave me a new purpose. I started to write. Not a bitter memoir, but a guide, a lifeline for other women. I called it "When Love Hurts: Freeing Yourself from Family Emotional Abuse." I poured my entire journey onto the page, the manipulation, the financial exploitation, and the steps to break free. To my astonishment, it was published and became a bestseller. Letters flooded in from women all over the world. "I read your book and finally told my 40-year-old son to move out," one wrote. "You made me see that I'm not a bad mother for choosing my own peace," shared another. The most healing letter came 2 years into my new life. It was from my grandchildren, in their own young handwriting. "Dear Grandma Julieta, Dad told us the truth. He told us Mom said very ugly things to you, and that's why you left. We miss you. We are proud of you for being so brave. We love you." Tears of pure, uncomplicated love streamed down my face. I wrote back to them, leaving the door to my heart forever open. Today, I am 75 years old. I am sitting on my balcony in Zurich, looking at the mountains that have borne witness to my transformation. I am no longer just a mother. I am a published author, a world traveler, a friend, a student of life. The woman who was buried under a mountain of duty and ingratitude has been unearthed, and she is thriving. Rebecca's cruel birthday wish was the most painful gift I ever received, but in the end,
it was also the most valuable. She asked for the ghost of the mother she resented to disappear, and I did. I let that woman die. And from her ashes, I was reborn, stronger, wiser, and finally, completely myself. My dear friends, my story is not a tragedy. It is a testament to the fact that it is never, ever too late to choose yourself, to reclaim your peace, to rediscover your joy. Your worth is not defined by what you can do for others, but by the peace you build for yourself. Thank you for walking this path with me. What does freedom mean to you? I would be honored to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember, your life is your own. Live it bravely. With love and respect, Julietta.